It is that time, man. College basketball, the season's starting to wind down, but if you follow college basketball, March Madness right around the corner, that means it's really just starting to heat up. Today, with my special guest, Bryant Northern, we are taking a deep dive on Big B Sports Talk to find out who can make a Sweet 16 run, who can make a Final Four run, and who do we think is going to win the national championship. Let's get started. All right, man. College basketball is coming to a close, man. Brian, we're at the end of February here. Teams and things are starting to take shape a little bit. So I thought today we would talk about who can make a 16, a Sweet 16 run, who we think is gonna be in it, or at least can get there. I mean, there's so much that goes into the tournament and who can get there with matchups and everything. But let's just kind of break down, and we can do it by conference, who we think is going to go to the Sweet 16, Final Four, and who can actually win this whole thing.
Let's
So,
do it.
first thing is in conferences. Let's just start conference, and let's start with the best conference first, the Big 12. I think there's only four teams that can make the Sweet 16. Now, I guess let me clarify this first. There's always going to be a surprise, at least two surprise teams in the Sweet 16 every single year. I mean, that's just the way it works. So this is just who we think is going to make it because you can't predict surprises because you don't know the matchups. So, and we'll do all that when the bracket comes out. But this is just who we think can make it without the surprises. First off, Big 12, I think four teams make it. I think Kansas State, I think Texas and Baylor. I don't think West Virginia. I think West Virginia will make the tournament, but they're not going to make the Sweet
Well, then
16.
You got Iowa State, who's obviously going to make the tournament, and Iowa State could be a 3 or 4 seed in this tournament. So you're putting them out as well.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I've seen
and
them play a
they're
lot.
going to come in as a 3 or 4 seed. You know that, right? They have
I
a good
do.
chance to come
I
in as a
do.
3 or 4.
But I don't think they have enough to be able to make the Sweet 16. I like their team, but I think a matchup is going to end up beating them in the tournament. But that's who I have as going to be able to make the Sweet 16 out of that conference. What about you?
I like those picks. Kansas is going to be a 1 seed. Big 12
Yeah,
is the best conference in basketball. Kansas is probably the best team in the Big 12. Some people might say Texas, or you might debate that right now. But I love Kansas as a 1. I
yeah,
like Texas as a 2, 3 at worst. I like Baylor as a 3, maybe a 4 at worst, depending on how they finish. And I also like Kansas State as a 3 or 4 seed. So
yeah.
those teams with that seeding, they're primed to make a run. So I like those teams to make a Sweet 16. And I
Gotcha.
think that would be very impressive if the Big 12 put 4 teams in the Sweet 16. Because usually,
Absolutely.
even as the best conference, you don't. You see 1 or 2, and
No,
everyone's debating what happened. This great conference has
right.
2 teams or only 3 teams. I think they could have 5. You don't foresee Iowa State getting in there, and I think Iowa State is going to have a good chance because they're going to be a top 4 seed. But I like your picks. I'm gonna go exactly where you went, and I think that um, you've even seen more Big 12 basketball than me. And Iowa State might be the weakest link of those top 5 teams in that uh,
But they're really good.
conference.
So I don't want to
Oh,
say
they're
that
really
Iowa
good.
State's not good. They're really good.
Yeah, you're right. And if and look, I could switch Iowa State and maybe take Baylor out. I don't love Baylor. I think Iowa State and Baylor are kind of tit for tat. But I think the Big 12 will get 4 teams in the Sweet 16. And I
Yeah,
think that you might be onto something. When Baylor's playing their best and Iowa State's playing their best, Baylor's a little better than them.
yeah, yeah. I like their guard play at Baylor a lot. They didn't make a whole lot of shots against Kansas State the other night, but Kansas State had a lot to do with that. They played really good defense. So, but that's who I think out of the Big 12 conference. Let's move on to the Big 10. You know how I feel about the Big 10, and we've had that conversation, man. I wrote it all down. I
There,
said Purdue, I said IU, and
it stops
then
there.
I
Stop. I
don't
don't think
know,
there's
man.
anybody else. I think Purdue and IU are the only two teams built to make a Sweet 16 run. And
Right.
although I think they're going to get 8 teams in, I think it stops there. Who else in the Big Ten is really built? I mean,
The-
Illinois could lose in the second round.
right.
You got
The one team, and I know I talked about surprises and you can't really predict it. I did predict one surprise out of the Big Ten, Rutgers. I think
mm,
Rutgers, the way that they play, they can upset somebody, and get to a Sweet 16. I believe that can happen. Just how hard they play and their style, I think that can be depending on who. Again, matchups mean everything in the tournament. Depending on who
absolutely.
they get matched up with, I think Rutgers can make a deep, not necessarily a deep run, but I think they can get to a Sweet 16 if the matchup is right. But other than that, man, I just don't see the Big
I'm
Ten
going to
getting
stop
many.
at two. I like two teams in the Big Ten to make a Sweet 16 run. I like Purdue. I think Zach Edey is just a nightmare to match up. I think the two freshman guards they have in Smith and Lawyer, they're not freshmen anymore. They're playing like sophomores and juniors. And
Right.
then I like IU. Trace Jackson Davis has been as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah.
Not just big man. He has been as good overall as any player in the country.
Absolutely.
He's a Player of the Year candidate. I like Jalen Hood Shafino. I like some of the other pieces they got. I like Woodson's defensive minded schemes. So I like those two teams. Look, could Iowa, Illinois, or maybe a Rutgers sneak in there? Yeah, but I'm not in my bracket. I probably won't have them advancing. So I
Yeah.
just like two teams for me in the Big Ten to make that Sweet 16.
Gotcha. And one thing, a quick note, I really like Illinois. I think Illinois has a chance as well. I like the way that they play. I just don't know if they can make enough shots. And they got good shooters. Not that they don't have good shooting. It's just when they get into a tight matchup, like that game against IU the other day, that is a game they should have won. I know it was on the road, but they should have won that basketball game and didn't. Now, IU had a lot to do with it because IU's good, but to be good in the tournament, those are the type of games that Illinois has to win, and they didn't. So,
I'd like to see them be more consistent. I mean, this
yeah,
team on paper was going to be a top 10, top 15 team,
absolutely.
and they've hit some bumps in the road, and I can't figure those guys out. I just feel
Yeah,
like they should be a little better than what they've been. So for me, I'm not banking on them making a Sweet 16 run.
gotcha. So let's move on. Let's move over. The Pac 12 is pretty easy. I mean, it's UCLA and Arizona. I don't even think anybody else gets in the tournament from the Pac 12. I mean, I know they have a few teams, but I literally don't think anybody else even makes it from the Pac 12. What about you?
Well, when I was kind of taking some notes before we did this, I picked two teams from the Pac-12: Arizona, who I think can win it all, and UCLA, who I think is a Final Four team. So not only do I think they make a Sweet 16 run, I think both of those teams are built for a Final Four.
Yeah.
Mick Cronin knows how to get there. We've seen that. He took Gonzaga to the wire. We was one shot away from the national championship game. I like UCLA. I like Mick Cronin. They got a pro in that team, probably a second round pick, but they got some guys who can put the ball in the hole. They got an
Mm-hmm.
experienced point guard, the little Tiger guy. And then I really like Arizona with their size. Once again, they're the only team I've seen this year that made Indiana look small, that made
Right.
Trace Jackson and Race and those guys look small. So I think
Right.
those two teams, not only are they going to make a Sweet 16, I think they're built to make a run. In terms of making the tournament, I think they could get a third or even a fourth team in. Let's see how the next couple weeks play out. But I think for sure their top two teams are as good as the top two teams in any other
In
conference.
any other
Arizona and
conference.
UCLA are the real deal.
Absolutely. So let's go to SEC. SEC, this one was tough for me. So Alabama, and it's still yet to be seen with the troubles that are going on there. I mean, Miller had 41 last night. I mean, it didn't seem to affect him at all on what's going on.
They poked the bear. I think what he did was he wanted to shut everybody up. And look, there's an
Yeah,
elephant in the room. Brandon
absolutely.
Miller has supposedly supplied a weapon to someone who used that gun to kill someone. During the game, they're chanting "lock him up," and he goes for 41 points.
41.
And I
Whew.
think what you're seeing here is they poked the bear. He's trying to prove to everybody, like, shut the F up. I'm here to play. I'm going to make buckets. I'm not going anywhere. And I've been kind of debating with some people from a morality standpoint, an integrity standpoint. Do you play him? It's not against the law, but when you sign a letter of intent or when you're on a college team, there's kind of like an integrity clause or this uh,
Sure.
in writing. You don't bring any negative attention to the university. You don't embarrass the university or yourself. And he has brought negative attention to himself and the university. So would they have been right to sit him or suspend him or even dismiss him from the team? I think so. Then you could look at it from a legality standpoint, and he hasn't broken a law. He maybe did not know what was going to happen then. So do you keep a Brandon Miller on the team? And then some are going to say yes. And his future is in jeopardy. If I'm an NBA team, does that affect me taking him in the top 15? And I think some NBA teams are going to say yes, and some NBA teams are going to say, "Hey, let's ask him some questions. Let's see where his head's at. He made a mistake. Maybe going forward he'll do better, and we're going to take a chance on him." But I tell you what, they're not winning the title without him. And I
Absolutely
think the
not.
top two teams in the country are Houston and Bama, and you can flip a coin on who's better. I don't
Right.
really know. I think those are the two best teams, and Alabama. This is the best basketball team I've ever seen them have, and they've had
Right.
some good players in the past and some
They
good
didn't have
teams
good
in the past.
coaching
But
though.
this is the best team I've ever seen from
Absolutely.
Alabama since I've been alive,
Absolutely.
and I think this team could win it, but not without Brandon Miller. And
No.
he showed you why last night with that 41.
Absolutely.
So for me in the SEC, top 16, Sweet 16 potential, Bama, who can win it.
Yep.
Tennessee, because when
Yep.
they're on, they're on. For whatever reason, they just can't beat Kentucky. But Tennessee is really good.
Yes.
And then for me, um, man, I'm on the fence with Kentucky. I'm going to say no for Kentucky. They're playing their best basketball right now. They've won 3 games in a row. They beat Florida. They beat Tennessee. They beat Mississippi State. We can debate how great a quality wins those are. But when Kentucky gets rolling, they're dangerous. How
Correct.
long will they get rolling, though? They do need 3 wins to make a Sweet 16. So can they win 3 games in a row like they just did? They're fighting for their tournament life.
Right.
They're back in. I think they're off the bubble and they're in right now.
Oh yeah,
Are
for
they a Sweet
sure.
16 team?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No,
I would
because
take
I don't think they're going to get a
Arkansas.
good seed. They're not going to get a good seed, and they're
No.
going to have to beat. They're going to have to win 2 to 3 very competitive games to get there, and I don't think their shooting's consistent enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say
No.
no.
Yeah. No.
So
I don't think
Tennessee
Kentucky
and,
gets in.
and, and Bama for me.
Arkansas has a better chance of getting to the Sweet 16 than Kentucky. And Arkansas is so up and down and all over the place. But when they are on, they're as good as any team in the country too. But the problem is, when are they on? You just don't know. But I definitely think I would take Arkansas, and I have them written down
I like
as
Kentucky better
being.
than Arkansas. We disagree here. I'm just
Well,
saying.
now Arkansas pasted Kentucky in Lexington, so there's that.
Well, and you know what? That was what, a month and a half, 2 months ago.
No,
I
no,
think.
no, no. It was like 3 weeks ago at
Okay.
most, and they pasted
I,
them.
I think when Kentucky's playing their best basketball, and I think right now we're seeing some of their better basketball. Their win at Tennessee was as impressive as a win as anybody in the SEC's had. Who beats Tennessee by 20 at Tennessee? Kentucky is the only team to do that. And we know there's 2 different Kentucky teams this year. There's the one Kentucky team where when you get on your social media feed, they're losing and all the fans want him gone. Then there's another version of Kentucky where they're winning and the fans are content and they think they're, an Elite Eight, Sweet 16 type team again. If that Kentucky team shows up, I actually think Kentucky's better version of themselves is better than Arkansas's. But Arkansas throughout the whole year in totality has been more consistent, I think, in a sense than Kentucky. But when Kentucky is rolling, I think they're the third best team in the SEC, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think so, but that's neither here nor there. But neither one of us think that UK can make a run to the Sweet 16. I don't think it's possible. I really don't think it's possible. Not the way they shoot the basketball. It's so inconsistent. They can't do that.
They
I
need
shouldn't
to
say they
though. They,
can't, but they won't do
But
that.
and here's the thing. Here's why they need to. When you lose in the first round, and Kentucky is as blue blood as UCLA or Duke, okay, or Kansas. When you lose in the first round to a St. Peter's, when your fan base, Calipari's in a weird hot seat. He's not in a hot seat to where he gets fired. He's in a hot seat to where I think he feels the pressure. The AD feels the pressure. The fans are just demanding more, and I think for him, he needs to make a Sweet 16. He needs to
Right?
shut the fans up, and he needs to let people know, hey, this is still Kentucky basketball. I'm still John Calipari. We can still get there and win. So I don't think it's in their favor. I don't think this team is built to make a run. But if there was ever a time for him to shut the fans up and say, look, I can coach and I'm the guy for the job, this is his year. This is
Sure.
his year. He needs to make a Sweet 16 this year.
I mean, it's a good opportunity. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's going to happen. That's all. I mean, I'm not saying the opportunity is not there. I don't think. I mean, I just don't think that it's going to happen. I just don't. The
No, I agree with you. It
consistency
needs to
level is
happen
not
for his
there.
sake.
You know.
I agree with you, but it needs to happen for his sake. Kentucky basketball. I mean, they lost in the first round last year to St. Peter's. They need to make a. He needs to make a run this year.
Gotcha. So moving on to, the Big East. I mean, there's 5 teams that are going to make it in the Big East. I mean, that's just plain and simple. You got Marquette, you got Providence, you got UConn, you have Creighton. And who was the last team? Oh, Xavier. So
Mm.
those 5 teams are going to make it. I don't think the team that I think that can make a Sweet 16, and we've kind of talked about them the last couple of weeks, is I think Marquette, because nobody's talking about Marquette. I think they're
They're
really
the
good
most
and they're
underrated
young.
team in the country. They are the
Yes,
most underrated, under talked about, underappreciated team in the tournament. They are the
absolutely,
real deal. ESPN said of last week that they would have them as a 4 seed. I
which
think
is
that's
nuts.
unfair. I think they should be a 3 or 2. The
Absolutely.
Big East is not getting enough credit. I
Nope.
was one of the people when you said they were the second best conference. I said you were wrong, and I disagreed with you. Now I'm looking back, scratching my chin, and I'm like, okay, I think they're probably the third best conference right now. I do think UConn could make a Sweet 16 run. When UConn is rolling, especially beginning of the year, UConn, they're dangerous. Creighton blew a
Creighton.
double figure lead to Marquette, but I'm telling you right now, that
Creighton.
is not telling you that Creighton is bad. That tells you how good Creighton is, because Creighton, I also think could make a Sweet 16 run.
Absolutely.
So I actually think 3 teams in the Big East are built to make a Sweet 16 run. Marquette, who should be a 2, 3, or 4 seed, two or
Yep.
three seed. A 4 seed would be disrespectful to what they've done.
Absolutely.
Marquette is a 2 or 3 seed type team. Shaka Smart is coaching his best basketball he's ever coached. This is VCU vintage Shaka Smart. This is a great, maybe the best Marquette team I've seen since Dwayne Wade and Tom Crean. I actually am going to say that. This is the best Marquette team they've had since Dwayne Wade left. Best basketball Shaka Smart has coached since VCU made a Final Four.
Gotcha.
Marquette should be a 2 or 3 seed. They're a Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four type team. I'm on the boat. I'm on the bandwagon with you now. They're the real deal. I doubted you early, but I've seen enough now. They're the real deal.
They're good,
Creighton had
man.
them by Creighton had a double figure lead on them, and I'm talking about a Creighton team who can make a Sweet 16. A
Absolutely, they
Creighton
can.
team who gives me Villanova vibes from the last couple of years, who can grind it up defensively, break you down. They're good at all 5 positions. And Marquette came back from double figures and beat Creighton at Creighton. But I
Right.
think for me, Big East has 3 teams: UConn when they're rolling, Creighton when healthy, and Marquette any day of the week. Man, they're a Sweet 16 team.
Yeah, the team that I thought earlier in the season could make a run was Xavier. I'm just not sure Xavier can do that now. Xavier's good. I'm not saying Xavier's not a good basketball team. I'm just not sure as of now if they can get to the Sweet 16. I've seen some inconsistencies. The same with Providence. Providence, good basketball team, and they made a decent run last year. Providence, but I just think when it comes to the Sweet 16 and who can get there, who's playing their best right now, is Creighton. I like UConn. UConn, they were really good, and then they hit that lull, and then they are on their way back up. I think UConn is playing their best basketball right now. They found something, and then Marquette. The only thing that I think about Marquette is, how the NCAA tournament is. You get a team nobody's talking about. They get a good seed because they've been a good team all year, and then they get beat the first game. That's my only worry about Marquette. But I think they're really well coached. I just think they're a better team than what people are giving them credit for. I
Oh
think
yeah,
Marquette
I think they're
in
the
the end.
most underappreciated team right now in the country.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we covered those conferences. Um, Big East. We covered. Now we didn't cover the ACC. I'm just having a hard time thinking anybody is going to make it from the ACC in the Sweet 16. I didn't even write it down, because I don't think anybody's making it, man. I really don't.
No.
I don't
Look,
think
is
anybody's good enough
Miami
to
the
do it.
best team? Miami or Duke is the best team in that conference,
Yeah.
and neither one of them. It's It reminds me of In Living Color when we were kids, and they had that skit with David Allen Greer and Damon Wayans, Men on Film, and they would go, "Hated it." Like when you said ACC, I was like, "Hated it." Get the
Oh my
ACC out of
goodness.
here. I mean, should we even talk about that? It's really the worst It's the worst Power Five. It's the worst the ACC's ever been in and I would say since we've been following basketball. It is
Absolutely.
really sad. It's bad.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is, Miami is the best team. I mean, let's just say Miami's the best team in the ACC. Now, I don't know if they're going to win the conference, which that kind of says everything that you need to know. They're the best team. They may not win the conference, and they can get hot. And when they're hot, they're really good. But when they're not hot or they're just playing average, I mean, when they're not making a ton of shots, if they're just making some shots in the flow of the game, they're not even that good of a team. They have to be making an abundance of shots just to be good. You can't win that way in the tournament, man. It doesn't work that way.
Miami's offense is legit, okay, but they're really kind of. I feel like it's AAU basketball. When you watch Miami, you feel like you're watching just a really good AAU basketball game.
Yeah,
Um, Duke's got actually their defense is starting to click. Duke's defense is starting to click. Could Duke or Miami make a Sweet 16? You only have to win 2 games to get there.
I don't
It's
think
not
so.
likely. It's not likely, but they could. But honestly, for me, I'm not putting any money on them making it a Sweet 16
No,
run.
there's
You
no
know,
way.
I'm
I
I'm
shouldn't
not.
say there's no way. Like you said, anybody can. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
tournament and matchups matter. But if we're just looking at it objectively, there's not going to be an ACC team in the Sweet 16. Now we sit here and say that, and there may end up being two, just because you know how the tournament is and how matchups work. But just looking at it as of right now, late February, I don't see anybody making it.
If you
The
had to pick one, who would it be for you?
It would be Duke. It
Same
would
for
be Duke
me.
just because they
Yeah,
defend.
they defend. Yep.
Yeah, that it would be Duke. Um, Now moving on to the one team that we haven't talked about. Well, you kind of brought them up a little bit. Who, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, is the best team in the country. They just happen to play in the American Conference. Is Houston? Houston. I think, and I can cut through the chase. I think Houston wins it. I think they are that good. I think Houston will win this tournament. Now, again, matchups are everything. Injuries could play a part. The tournament is the tournament. But if we're just looking at it as of today, I think Houston, number one, wins it, but they will definitely be in the Sweet 16 for sure. I don't even think it's up for debate on whether we think they're a Sweet 16 team, is it?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what's in the air or what's in the water because you're in Texas and I'm in Indiana. This is the most we've ever agreed. I'm on the Marquette bandwagon. I've seen everything in them you've said all year. We both think that the ACC is not really going anywhere. And I think Houston's the best team in the country. I've said it
Yeah.
for over a month now. This machine that you call Houston is just a group of heavy hitters. It's grown men
Yeah.
playing basketball against college boys. I actually feel like when I watch them play, I'm watching 23 to 25-year-old grown men still play college basketball. They don't look the same. They don't move the same. They don't defend the same.
Nope.
They are the best team in the country. Like you said, not only do they make a Sweet 16 or an Elite Eight or Final Four, I think they are best equipped to win the entire thing.
Right. Absolutely. Now let's just dig into Final Four teams while we wrap this thing up, because I think we've kind of jumped the egg on who we think is going to win it is Houston, but I don't think that's a surprise to many people. Final Four teams, you know, I don't think I think Kansas. I think Kansas is a Final Four team. Um, as much as I like Marquette, I don't know that Marquette is necessarily a Final Four team. I think Alabama is. I think Alabama. I think Kansas. Um, you know how I feel about Purdue. I don't think Purdue is. I think that UCLA and Arizona, both of those teams can make a Final Four along with Houston. Those are the teams that I think can make the Final Four. I know a lot of Kansas State fans are going to be mad at me, but I don't think Kansas State can make the Final Four. I mean, I don't think they can make enough shots to do
I
it.
think there's 10 or 12 teams that can make a Final Four. I think, but I'm going to go here. Who's who I want to be in the Final Four? I want Bama. I want. I just think with everything going on with Bama, it's an intriguing story. It's an intriguing team. I want to see Bama in there. I would like to see Bama represent the SEC, get in there. I want to see Houston in there. I want to see Arizona, and then I want to see Kansas. That's the final four that I would like to see. Now, I'm going to disagree with you. If Kansas State gets rolling again, they could make a Final Four. If
Absolutely,
Marquette gets a
100%.
good draw, they could make
100%.
a Final Four. I actually think there's 10 or 12 teams that could be in there. And there's probably a team that we didn't even name that might sneak in there that we just
There's
didn't,
probably going to
go.
be.
Who knows? Texas, Tennessee, who knows? There's one of
Correct.
those teams that we just didn't even talk about, who we think is going to stop an Elite Eight could make that because it's the parity is that extreme. There's one or two teams that I think no matter what, they're going to be there. And I think Houston's going to be there no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think Arizona's going to get there. I actually think they're a little better than UCLA just because their size. I like Arizona right now. Um,
Will the guard
you
play
know,
get them, though? You think the guard play will get Arizona?
no,
Okay.
no. I think that they have no real legit weaknesses. Now, some might say depth. They go seven deep. I don't like when
Correct.
they get into the third guy or fourth guy off the bench, but I think they have all of the tools to make it. I think they got shot makers, defenders. I think we already know Houston is the real deal. I
Yeah.
think Alabama from top to bottom. If this Brandon Miller situation doesn't become a distraction and they can just stay where they're at, let's say that never happened, I think that they're almost a lock to make it. I might even think they could be the second best team in the country behind Houston. But I also, I mean, in UCLA and Arizona is a coin flip. I give the edge to Arizona. Um, but I also think that Marquette and who knows a Texas or a Tennessee if they get rolling they could sneak in there. But I have four teams that I want to see. I want to see Kansas get back there. I'm not a huge Bill Self fan as you are. You kind of said, and maybe you're not a fan. You're just giving credit where credit's due. You think he's the best coach in college basketball.
Yeah.
Let's find out because he has enough talent to get back there again. They are playing in the best conference, and he's won some games I didn't think he was going to win. I've bet against Kansas a couple times this year, and thinking, oh yeah, they're not going to do it on the road, and they've gotten down and come back. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a Kansas team that's going to make it again. When you get there before, it's a little easier to get there again, and I think he has that working in his favor. So I would like to see Kansas, Alabama, Houston, and Arizona. That's the four teams that I would like to see make a Final Four this year.
Gotcha. Yeah. I like those teams. I like Kansas. I mean, I shouldn't say I like Kansas. I like Kansas because they're a good basketball team. I like them to make the Final Four. I don't necessarily like the school. Um, but as far as uh, Texas and Tennessee, I, I don't know, man. Texas is good. Texas is a lot better than what people give them credit for. I think a lot of people think that they're, for some reason, have fallen off. They've lost some games. They just play in a tough conference, man. They play in a conference that's really, really good. Texas is a good basketball team. I
And
think
fans are
Tennessee's a
fickle.
good
A team will
basketball team.
lose one or two games, and fans jump off, and they're like, "Oh, they've lost it. They're done." And I think
Right.
Kansas State was there with their fan base and their
Oh,
team.
but
And
Kansas
we've
State,
seen Texas do it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brutal at Kansas State. Kansas State, the fans were so mad. They were turning on each other. They thought that if anybody said anything that wasn't 100% in their favor, that they were being negative. It was like, no, man, we're telling you, we've hit a wall. We got to break through this wall. That's all that we're saying. It's not we're
Mhm.
saying that we stink because they don't. But it was clear. I mean, they lost 4 out of 5 games. I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, they weren't playing as well. It was obvious. So you're right. It's the same thing with, I mean, fan bases, again, fan is equals fanatic. And, it's short for fanatic anyway. And so you're right about that. People just jump off the bandwagon. But getting back on the topic, I just think Texas is really good. I think Tennessee is really good. Again, Tennessee is just a bad matchup with Kentucky. It's just a bad, for some reason, they're just a bad matchup when it comes to playing Kentucky. It just is what it is. Sometimes that happens. Um, but then they turn around and they beat Alabama. And Alabama wiped the floor with Kentucky. So,
Mhm.
it's just that's the way the games work. Um,
I have a question for you, and I can't zone in and see. Are you wearing a University of Louisville Cardinal shirt? What's the
I
logo on that
am.
shirt?
I am. Look, look, look.
You're brave, man. Brave man.
Louisville. Look, I have
You
been a Louisville fan my entire life. My entire
just say
life.
it's women's basketball is doing good this year, man. You're just supporting the
I'm
women's team
just
right now. I
not
know what it
going to
is.
jump off the bandwagon. Look, I had an epiphany yesterday, and we
Okay.
were. I was this guy that I had been bad mouthing on a post, um, and I was right. I mean, the guy literally kept saying, "Hey, I don't support. I would rather have him lose than and have Kenny Payne. I don't think he can turn it around." And that's basically what he was saying. I don't think he can turn it around. He's not going to turn it around. I'm like, but do you want them to win? Do you want him to turn it around? Well, he never would say that he would. And then finally he did. And I'm like, you know what? I need to back off and just stop being a bully and chasing people around and saying, you know what? I get it. The season has made fans crazy at Louisville. That's the problem. We're not used to this, Brian. You know that we're not used to this. We can't deal
This season would
with
make
this.
any
It's
fan crazy.
horrible.
What fan base right now would not be ready to jump off a building at 4-25? I mean,
Right, man.
jeez.
I mean, we're not used to this. We're just not used to it. It's literally made us go crazy. I mean, usually we're all crazy when it comes to fandom anyway. But you're a proud fan base at the University of Louisville, and you have to go through this. I'm like,
I
man,
I
and
was
that's
shocked
what
when
I
I saw your
said.
shirt. I saw your shirt and I was like, "Is that a University of Louisville shirt?"
It is,
And
man. I'm not
all of
jumping
my
off the
gear is in the back of the
bandwagon.
closet, man. I might
No,
start wearing it again next year. My
yeah,
gear is in
man.
the back of the
I'm not.
closet.
I'm not jumping off the bandwagon. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I love them.
I'm still a Louisville fan. I'm just not wearing the gear until next year. I'm gonna try again next year. Right now, I'm not gonna be that guy walking through the grocery store and everyone's asking me comments or talking about me as I walk past them. I'm just gonna wait till next year and try to wear my gear again. But
I got you. I got you. It's crazy. It's just been a crazy year.